Hello, everybody, and welcome to DC Time. I'm Dean.
I'm Chris.
Thanks so much for joining us. We're glad to get together again. Chris and I was talking upstairs, as we always do, before we come down here and turn the camera on. He had a great analogy that he brought up to me. Go ahead and share that, and I'll maybe set the stage, and we'll just give you some of our thoughts and some of our discussion. So,
yeah, this analogy I've talked with Dean before about, and we have really liked it and have seen a similarity in our lives, our spiritual journey. It's my wife's analogy. Beth was a teacher for 16 years. In the last 8 years, she was in administration. But we have a local high school here. Both Dean and I attended at this high school. So did my wife, Beth. And they have a large football stadium. It's known throughout the state. It's Wright's Bowl. And it is 3/4 of it is a bowl. And it's a big deal to play a ball game at Wright's Bowl. And Beth would use the bowl in her analogy to her students in English classes and literature classes. She would say to the students, it's my job to get you to sit in as many different seats in life, to see life from every advantage point. And she used the bowl as an example. If you were watching a game and you were at the 10-yard line on the south end of the bowl, did you see the same game that was watched on the north end at the 20-yard line? Or up high in the bowl or down low in the bowl. She did this great analogy. And of course, the kids could identify with it because they knew what the bowl was. They were in the bowl on Friday nights rooting on the Panthers. So it was a great analogy, and then you and I have used it on our journey, thinking about how Father has encouraged us to move, change our seats and look at what he's saying and what he's sharing from different positions and perspectives. And we have enjoyed that,
right. I love the analogy. I think because like you said, it creates all these thoughts. You can get all these positive thoughts from it, like I am now, like I did when Chris first brought it up. We do view a lot of what our journey like that, being adjustable the way we have talked on the show recently, or being open to things, learning from whoever God has placed in our lives. Now we can learn from them. So we see in all those ways. There can be other things to think of that analogy right away. I can hear the maybe the negative or the fear talk or the careful talk, because we grow up, and this also is in me, resonates a little bit in me too. You want to know what's the best seat, and what is the best, what's the right seat. And then it becomes the right seat, and then you get into that whole world that we grow up in, that you're not, and then you're then it's all negative. Yeah. The whole view's negative. Then it's like, no, you're not in the right seat. This is the best seat. This is the best view. You get all these opinions, and you get all these jealousy things that happen, right? And then all of a sudden they're jealous. Oh, that guy's got a better seat than me. It's crazy where we could go with this, right? The analogy. Yeah. So the biggest point we want to try to talk about here, or our journey, is to, none of us it's ridiculous to think that somebody today has all truth, and that you somehow are under somebody to where you got to go find that person's seat and sit under them, sit at their feet. That doesn't exist. So I gladly I appreciate Chris and a lot of what he said lately on the show. Encourages us to be adjustable, to be open, to be free, to be in a relaxed state of, it's okay where God has you. It's okay where God has me. We can all learn from each other. And I'm relieved, at peace with that. Then it's no longer my job to change anybody's view. I can encourage people, like we're trying to do with this analogy. Hey, be open to look at some things from a different perspective. There's no fear in that. If somebody brings in fear, oh, be careful. You got to stand on these truths here, or these doctrines here. This is what we come together around.
Right.
Don't move outside of that. That's a red flag for me right away.
Yeah.
Like, what? We're not free to listen and learn from all of God's creation and God's people? I mean, of
That's
course we
such a
can.
good point, because that type of caution was in my religious background.
It's in.
I've
I've done the cautioning.
caution you not to,
Right.
and then today we look at so many of these things and go, wow, it was the opposite of what I thought and stuff. So
It's always beautiful.
yeah,
What we're learning. You're not going to jump to some kind of negative. God's, if God brings us through as He does, this is back to the perspective how we talked the last few weeks, the environment we're in.
oh gosh, yeah,
So it is just thick with error and problems, and right, we get things wrong all the time. We're coming through this environment, so we get things wrong all the time. My life, I can go back in time and look at all these things I used to believe. I used to believe there was an eternal torture God out there, and He had this place that most of His creation was going to go to.
That was a truth.
I used to believe that. I thought that was true. I don't believe that anymore.
Called that a truth that we
Right.
believed, and we've let go of it now.
So there's a lot of things we've let go of, and then there's a lot of things that we keep seeing a little bit different. The perspective gets a little, the view gets a little better.
And I love that you bring up the environment thing. You and I have talked about we're not all on the same page. We're at different places in our journey.
Right.
I did want to say I listened to an excellent show this morning. I think Dean is going to pin it. You can look at it under the More section or whatever on this channel. And it was Steve Martin interviewing Jim Burson, and it was excellent. I loved it. Jim in that said, God uses little things to create grand things, and of course I was thinking of the Grand Canyon and how a stream carved all that out, is what they say, that massive canyon. And this is what God does. He does these little things. And you and I go, well, that's exactly how this is unfolded for us. It's been these little things.
Right.
And they just kept mounting to a greater and greater truth. And we really appreciate that. I wanted to bring this from this grace book I've been reading, The Absolute Despotism of Grace. And this was in chapter 9 by J.G.M. Vicker. He starts out with Romans 6:14. You are not under the law, but under grace. All your inward searching after faith and your groaning over your own deficiencies arises from your not yet grasping perfect grace. In all its extent and in all its glorious freeness. In yourself, you are altogether without strength. God expects nothing of you. Don't break your heart that you cannot find what is not there and cannot render to Him what He does not ask. He gives everything. We made that statement, I'm pretty sure, last week. We were talking, this guy says, searching after your faith. Faith is given to you by Father in measure.
Right.
You and I
it's not out of you.
No, it's not out of us.
It's not out of the human.
He, over and over again, we have discovered that Father is doing it. He's the provider. He's, one of the things you just said, placer.
Right.
The circumstances in our life. He's doing all of that. It's all going to eventuate for good.
Yeah. Here's an article. Here's a quote right up here, though, above. I'll read it by Albert Einstein. I just saw it said, "Don't let schooling interfere with your education." Pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. That fits a lot of things there.
Jeff Bolender?
Yeah.
Okay.
He wrote the derived version.
The Placer of All by Jeff Bolender. The Placer of all, the Creator of all, the Operator of all, of all, the fulfiller of all, is using all to fulfill his plan to be all in all. No one is frustrating him. All is and are serving him and his plan. That's a big statement there.
No kidding.
Evil is here to serve the good.
Yeah.
That's about, I'll just stop there. It's a great article. But that's reminds me of what we was talking about, the two nature thing a little bit.
Sure
And
does.
the good and the bad, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. A lot of times it says, but it's just right and wrong, good and bad. That this seeing those things, this environment we're in, the evil that he's talking about. Yeah, this what we live with in this environment. To me, it gets overwhelming at times, and it is hopeless to think that the human could come out of that situation.
Right.
So
That thought is consistent with that last chapter we read in the two natures, where it says sin is not a tyrant of God's, but the slave of God.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the tyrant. You called it the bully in the room.
Right.
It's not that.
No, it's not.
It's
not.
a slave of God.
Right. He's using it now. It gets confusing. It's crushing.
Yep.
That's the environment we're in. We are crushed.
Yep.
We are dying.
It's why we don't all have agreement.
We are in this state. Right.
Yeah.
We're not going to have agreement. There's going to be
that's coming.
Frustrations and fights and all that within yourself and with others.
I believe that's coming, all this agreement.
Yeah.
You know, when we're all standing there praising God, you know.
That's why we like, in a lot of Paul's language, he talks about the Spirit, and he talks about the unity of the Spirit and tapping into those things. And you can do that. We can sense that in each other at different times. And that so many times in my journey, that's come out of nowhere, to where you're hit with some of those beautiful things, and then it's like, oh, I kind of see what Paul's talking about here. And that's a beautiful thing to look for.
And for me, those have been those small little things, but they've always been sufficient. They've always been enough. It's what's kept you and I doing this for as long as we have. I wanted to read from Philippians chapter 2, the very beginning here, starting verse 1. If then there is any consolation in Christ, if any comfort of love, if any communion of spirit, if any compassion and pity, fill my joy full, that you may be mutually disposed, having mutual love, joined in soul, being disposed to one thing, nothing according with faction, nor yet according with vainglory, but with humility, deeming one another superior to oneself, not each noting that which is his own, but each that of others also. For let this disposition be in you, which is in Christ Jesus also. Deeming one another superior to oneself.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So that reminds me just that too, how we opened about being adjustable. Being, hopefully that ability resonates and is in us, that God does that for us, where we can have that, whatever that would take, to have a view from a different seat, back to the analogy.
Right.
To be like, oh, somebody's saying, hey, look at it this way. And it's like, oh, I might do that. You don't have to have fear about that. That's what I would pray for, that I'm able to see something clearer. And that might be changing seats or being adjustable, or however God's going to do that. But yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I do too. It is beautiful. Hope you all have a great week. Enjoyed bringing this message to you today. Hope it was an encouragement for all of you. Love the comments. Thank you very much for those. And check out that video he's going to link, because that really filled me up this morning. It was good. I really appreciate it.
See you next time.
Bye.